Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and this is a solo review of Slay the Spire, the board game. And I did play the video game that this is based on. I only maxed out the first two characters in it, but I did enjoy my time with it greatly, okay? And also, I did not back this Kickstarter project. I purchased a pre-order way after the campaign from the publisher, okay? Now, what is my experience with the game so far? So I did about 4 playthroughs, okay? And each playthrough had multiple acts, okay? So I would say I personally count each play as one act. So I would say about a dozen plays basically, if we're gonna count each act, okay? And all of them with the Ironclad, all right, in just controlling just that character solo, of course. Now, let's go ahead and go over a quick overview of what this game is like, right? So, just like in the video game, you're gonna pick a character and you start with a very basic deck, and you gain a couple of random bonuses at the start, and you're gonna have acts, okay? So each act is gonna be this map that you're gonna go up in, and you're gonna have different locations and encounter enemies or random encounters or the merchant or the camp, okay, where you can rest and upgrade your cards and gain some health, okay. But the goal of the game is to go as far as you can, okay, through the acts. So once you reach the end of the act, there's a boss, you defeat it, move on to the next act, and you just try to go as far as you can, okay, before you are defeated. Once you die, game's over, okay. And along the way, you're gonna be upgrading your cards, gaining relics, and just like in the video game, there's gonna be unlocks, okay. So after each playthrough, depending on how far you made it, you're gonna tick boxes in the unlocks, and when you reach certain thresholds, you're gonna unlock cards specific to your character, and later on Ascension levels, and even Act 4 and colorless cards for all characters. Alright, I want to start by commenting on the components. So first I'll start with the negatives, and that's the sleeves. So this game, due to its nature, it requires you to use sleeves because of the double-sided cards, right? So the publishers included a set of sleeves with the game, and unfortunately, I think they're not up to par, okay? I've only played about, like I said, about a dozen times total each act. And I even heard that the sleeves were kind of delicate, so I've not shuffled them as rough as I typically do with other sleeved games. And I've already seen, I'm gonna put up some pictures. I've already seen some peeling in the corners, and the finish of the sleeves has this tendency to scratch. Okay, so again, this kind of hard to capture on camera, so I'm gonna put up a picture on screen where I show how the backs of the sleeves scratch, okay? So pretty subpar sleeves, and I have heard that there are some really bad batches that you have to contact the publisher to have the whole batch replaced. I don't think this is like the most terrible batch, I guess, but again, I haven't even played it that much, so maybe I'm wrong. This could be one of those bad batches, but my point is, I think that eventually you're gonna have to buy new sleeves for this. These sleeves are just not gonna stand the test of time. This is a tricky problem to solve from a publisher perspective. Because if you include sleeves that are too premium, maybe the game price would have ballooned and priced out a lot of people from even buying the game. I get it. But yeah, just reality is these sleeves are not going to hold up long term. Next, another negative on the component side is the board. So there's a couple of complaints I have about this. One, the finish that they chose for the boards also has that same scratch. It's also prone to scratching, just like the sleeves. It's that same finish that the sleeves have. Again, I'm going to show that picture so you see what I'm talking about. But also my Ironclad board, I haven't checked the other ones, but my Ironclad board kept rotating like this, which made it really fiddly and difficult to move the sliders on the character because it just keeps sliding around like this. And look, you can even like spin it in its own center like that, right? I have never had this problem with any other double layer boards from other board games that I've bought. I had to put my character in between two token trays like this in order to keep it still because the damn thing would not stop rotating. And yeah, it reduced my enjoyment and I had to figure out a way for it to just stay still. Now, on the positive side of the components, we have the insert that comes with the game, and it is extremely well thought out. One of the best I have ever seen in many years after many purchases. This insert rocks, okay? Very well thought out insert, will accommodate all sleeved cards, obviously, and it also has a very nice token tray. I still decided to bring my own just to these are the tokens that you're gonna use the most frequently, so I wanted to have them in front of me for quick access. But regardless, very well thought out token tray and insert. Now, a little note on setup. The setup is relatively quick, and also for how grand this game feels, it fits on a relatively small table space. I'm going to share an above shot there so that you can see what I mean. And there's probably even other ways you can find to compact the footprint. On the subject of setup, relative to how much you get to play for the amount of setup, it's pretty good. It's one of those games where you spend a bit of setup at the beginning and you get to play a whole lot. It's just one of those. I really like the setup to gameplay ratio. Now, moving on to the rulebook. The rulebook is very, very well made, and it's just one of those, this is just a good example of a well thought out Kickstarter IP-based rulebook. Tons of these IP-based rulebooks are subpar and they're just there to sell miniatures. Many such cases, very unfortunate. This is just not one of them. There's no miniature bloat here. The miniatures for the characters that are included is just 4 of them in total. Very nice, minimalistic in that sense. Just a bunch of cards and a couple boards. Well done, and some tokens, of course. But we also have the rulebook. Very well thought out. And obviously, I do have some background with the game, so that helped. But I think I can objectively speak when I say that this is just a very well thought out rulebook, period, even if you don't have any background with the game. So I think that you're going to be picking this game up and playing it in no time. And I also think that this is one of the easiest games in my collection to come back to. Okay, I think that months from now, if I want to pull this out again, it'll be a piece of cake to get this on the table. I might have to read a couple reminders, but that's it. And the player aid that's included, which also serves as a double-sided board for the merchant, is very well thought out as well. Gives you some nice at-a-glance iconography and also the round structure. Just very, very well done. Now, keep in mind that merchant neoprene mat is not included in the retail version. That's a Kickstarter extra, okay? But a very good rulebook and player aid. Just a smooth experience to learn. Okay, so now how's the gameplay look? So just like in video game, you're gonna get that same dopamine hit every time that you upgrade your deck. You're gonna be acquiring cards, upgrading cards, acquiring loot, and it's just wonderful. And now they, of course, had to do some concessions with some of the effects and some adjustments in order to adapt it to board game form, but I think it's just very, very well executed. And I really like how they reduce the values here. I think having higher damage values would have just kind of gotten out of control here, but I enjoy the lower damage and defense values in general, okay? It makes it feel more impactful. The unlocks also are great. I look forward to unlocking everything with my characters. There's just a lot of content here to explore, and I've just barely scratched the surface with one character. The game also packs a lot of content. It is not exactly cheap, but you're gonna get your money's worth with the amount of cards. There's thick potion, relic, and card upgrade decks, not to mention the enemy decks. No two playthroughs will ever be the same, so that element from the video game, they definitely captured it here. Now, personally, there is one element that I found not exactly positive from the experience in board game form, and that is the setup when it comes to the act board, okay? Reshuffling the tokens was a bit of a pain, although I came up with a little trick that spits it up somewhat. But yeah, reshuffling those tokens and distributing them, that's a bit fiddling. I never look forward to that step of resetting the board when I move to the next act or when I start the game over. The moving around of the cubes for the enemies, I was not a fan of that either. But that is the best method for tracking health. I tried dice and it didn't really improve anything. I always try to find alternate methods of reducing fiddliness, but there just isn't a better method really. The cubes work, they're just kind of fiddly. It's just the way it is. Also, another element that was slightly fiddly was also when you're required to randomize an enemy, because when you have to summon an enemy, sometimes there's variants, right? They have the same name, but they don't have the same ability. So you're gonna need to randomize which one you draw. Now you can just shuffle them, although I find that slows down the flow of the game. I just roll a D4 for randomizing, or a D6 when required. I found rolling a die real quick for randomizing which enemy you get sped that up. But yeah, another fiddly element of the gameplay experience is randomizing an enemy when it's summoned. Now, I also went and played the video game again, and I've been thinking which one I prefer, right? And personally, I prefer this. Well, first, I just love tactile experiences. I love board games. That's why I have the channel, right? So, of course, that's one thing. But I think the game stands out on its own, definitely. And I also really like the adjustments that they made to translate it here. I love the card play and the upgrading, and puzzling with what to upgrade, and figuring out the best way to deal maximum damage with what I have in hand, and using my potions and relics for best effect. All of that just translated lovely, and I love being able to do that in tactile form. Now, the one thing, once I went back and forth playing, right, I don't mind having to set up the enemies or the merchant. That's all fine. What I really, the one negative thing, other than the slight amount of fiddliness, was when I die at the end of my run through, it's just so depressing having to set up everything again and break down your deck. That part is kind of depressing compared to the video game. In the video game, once you lose, you just press a button and you start a new run. And of course, it's a video game, but that is the one thing I prefer from the video game. And I mean specifically at the end of the game, just pressing a button and starting over. Every time that I finish a run through here, it's cool to unlock things, but having to set up everything again, man, it's just depressing. But other than that, yeah, I do prefer this over the video game. And yeah, folks, honestly, I think this is one of the top solo deck builders you could buy today. And one wonderful thing about this is that it's a pure solo experience. You don't have to control multiple characters, and tons of these co-op deck builders require you to control multiple characters for the best experience. But this one, you don't have to deal with that. Just one character, one deck, that's it. And yeah, this is definitely top 5 material. I don't know, I'm gonna have to sit down and think hard in my personal list where this would land compared to other deck builders, but definitely top 5, if not top 10 solo deck builders out there. And because of how easy it is to come back to, and the relative light rule set, I found it like a cozy game to just sit down and play. And it sets up relatively quick, like I said. So I'm definitely gonna be coming back to this. And yeah, just wonderful game on its own, and also wonderful board game adaptation from its source material. But yeah, that's it, folks. I want to thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the game. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.